All right, we're ready to go. Just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay over there. You see me, they see me, you see there. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Wow, what are we doing on a Saturday morning at a real estate office, right? Well, we're here because obviously there's tremendous interest and desire in finding out if home buying, home ownership is right for you. I'm kind of biased. I think it is absolutely right for just about everyone, but you're going to get a lot of information here today. Our goal is not to overwhelm you. We want to educate you. We want to motivate you to take some action and find out exactly what you can or cannot do. But don't be afraid. There's no final exam at the end. And you're welcome to stay as long as you like afterwards, speaking with whoever invited you, with our loan professionals to get even more questions answered for you. My name is Slim Shady. Now, hold on a second. There you go. So I'm Tony Martinez. I work for Gabi Martinez. We're the co-broker of the Xtreme International. Gabi, stand up so they can see you. Okay. I'm already in trouble already. So thank you so much for being here. We're very proud of our organization, and we're in our 10th year. Come June, we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. So we're very blessed to be here. This is our main office, but we have 4 other offices. We have West Palm Beach, we have Coral Springs, and we also have 2 in Highlands County. So if you're tuning in online from Highlands County, we have an office in Lake Placid and 1 in Sebring. Now we are up to almost 200 incredible sales professionals. Many of you are here today because one of them invited you to the presentation, and the same thing with our folks on Zoom. Whoever went ahead and invited you, make sure that you get with them regarding any questions you may have on the process. We're not going to keep you here overly long time. We have scheduled 90 minutes for the presentation, but Ari and I will probably be done maybe around the 60-minute mark. We wanted to make sure that we have enough time for questions and answers. But I need your promise to do something, guys. Ready? That's the only thing I'm going to ask of you today. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I know people get in an environment like this and they say, I don't want to ask any dumb questions. There's absolutely no dumb questions when it comes to home ownership. It is crucial because there's so much misinformation that's flowing around out there, right? And I want to touch on that today. Now, today we're going to talk about benefits of home ownership versus renting. There's no doubt in my mind that most people, given the opportunity, want to be homeowners. Would you agree with that? But there are also very tangible reasons to embrace home ownership, not just the emotional, psychological, but there are real financial benefits to being a homeowner. Let's talk about the real estate market today, because there's so much information out there, right? Have you guys been watching or the news or reading everything else, and you hear things like there's going to be a housing crash, don't buy here today, you may not do it. I get it. I want to deal with that with you because I'm in that space every single day. One of the things I do when I'm not involved in this segment is I'm actually a national authority on distressed properties. I am constantly training agents across the country how to engage homeowners in foreclosure, to help them avoid foreclosure whenever possible. So I'm always monitoring stats, numbers, because there's opinions and then there's stats and there's facts. So I am going to speak, I believe, both passionately and with authority and knowledge on what I believe is happening. Now, at the end, I'm not some kind of financial guru. You're not getting financial advice here. You're not getting legal advice here. We're just humble realtors, but we want you to have the right information to make an intelligent decision. Sound fair? Now, most people say, I want to buy, where do I start? This is a pretty good start. You guys are here. Obviously, you're motivated. Now we just have to get you the right information. It's important you understand what a realtor does in the process. Now, is Gabi blocking there a little bit? Maybe there? No? You guys can see okay? Okay, I just want to make sure. So you slide it? No, good. Now,
maybe you slide it a bit.
okay.
I get them.
Okay, slide this way out there, a little bit. There we go. Most of the time, a consumer, someone that's a buyer, doesn't really understand the complexity of the home buying process. Yes, there's a lot that is involved in finding the right home for you, but that's not even half the battle. Most of the battle happens from contract to closing. We believe that a realtor is essential in the process. And I want to point out some of the ways that a realtor not only can save you a lot of time, effort, and frustration, but a tremendous amount of money. You guys will be okay with saving some money? They promised me a live audience. At what point are you guys going to demonstrate that you're a live audience? Thank you. That was, I mean, I'm looking at this going, my flights, and then at the end of the day, isn't it great when you can buy cash? Anybody here buying cash? Okay, isn't it wonderful? And don't be shy. Of course I'm buying cash. How much you need? The vast majority of us, we need some help. We need some financing, right? And that's one of the biggest areas of confusion because most people have no clue what's available to them. And there's some very cool stuff available. There's some wonderful programs now that if you qualify, can make it exceptionally easier to qualify in this day and age. So let's do it. Now, owning versus renting. Let me see, how many of you are here today because you're seeking to become a homeowner? Let me see the hands. Fantastic. Of those of you that are wanting to be a homeowner, would this be your first time purchase? Would this be the first time you purchase? Fantastic, fantastic. So here's the thing. There are a lot of benefits over renting. So this kind of stuff maybe will be a little basic, but this is just kind of warming you up. Do you understand that in many scenarios, your mortgage payment will be less than your rent payment? Now think about that for a second. That usually wasn't the case back in the day. You know how much you're paying for rent now. Chances are you're paying more for rent now than you want to. And it has gone up probably a lot in the past year, year and a half or 2 years. Am I right or am I right? Yeah. So let me ask you, who are you making rich right now? I'm sorry, what was that? And you know what? God bless landlords because we need them. If it wasn't for that landlord, you wouldn't maybe have a place to stay right now. So I am not anti-landlord. God bless them. Let them have as many properties as they want. But at the end of the day, you got to think about you. You got to think about your family. And one of the things I have found is sometimes when you're a renter, there's not a whole lot of stability, is there? Now, you know what? How many people have been displaced because the homeowner, the landlord says, you know what? I'm charging you $1,500, but I can get $2,000. Right? Yeah. Or you know what? You go into and you're thinking, man, I'm going to raise my family here. I'm going to build this thing here. And exactly 1 year and 1 day later, you're out of that place because they're renting to somebody else. And I don't think people want that. How many of you want that insecurity? Knowing that from day to day, what's going to happen, what's going to change. And if you're going to make anybody rich, why not make yourself rich? Why not build generational wealth for yourselves, right? Now, you guys understand what the term equity stands for? Equity means the difference between what you owe on the property and what you can sell the property for and after expenses net. So let me ask you a question here. Is equity in real estate guaranteed? Yes or no? No. Now, one of the things you're going to find about me, I tell it like it is. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. There's no middle ground with me. But it bothers me when real estate agents tell people you're automatically going to make money on a property. Let me tell you something. When you buy your primary residence, your primary concern, pardon the pun, shouldn't be, am I going to turn this into a huge moneymaker for me? You're buying shelter. You're buying a place to raise your family. You're buying stability. And it just so happens that traditionally, real estate is an excellent investment. But nobody can say with absolute certainty it is going to go up. Has it traditionally gone up just about every year for the past 40 years? Yes. But how many of you were alive in 2008? That's a dumb question, right, people? Can you imagine if you're struggling with that answer right about now? Can I get back to you? A lot of you are too young to remember what happened in 2008, but we had a thing. We had a thing in the country called the Great Recession, and we had a mortgage crisis, and we had a lot of people losing their homes, right? What happened to property values back then? They kind of went down a lot. okay? But things have recovered nicely. No, I think that's an understatement. They've recovered incredibly. And so for the past several years, there's been so much appreciation, right? That we tend to think it's automatic, and we tend to think that it's going to happen that much every year, every year. You know what? It can, but it may not. At the end of the day, I look at it like equity is a bonus. How many of you guys feel the same way? I'm sorry, what was that? Because at the end, you're buying a place to live. You're buying a place to live and raise your family and everything else. And then at the end of the day, if it's going up, well, that's a beautiful thing. But I think the people that should be the most concerned about equity in the short run should be investors. That's a different story. But when you're a primary homeowner, that's a different scenario. Now, I'm not a tax professional, don't take my word for it, but you know what? There are significant tax advantages to being a homeowner. And for those of you whose income is going up consistently and you don't have the beautiful write-offs that are associated with homeownership, you're probably paying Uncle Sam a lot more than you want to, need to, should. So this is a significant advantage that we have. Let's hope we never lose that advantage, right? Now, what about personal lifestyle preferences? That's one of the things that you like. I mean, I have people that say, you know what, I got this neighbor upstairs that's driving me nuts. This is them here. Okay, did you choose that lifestyle? No, it got chosen for you, right? Well, here's what I'm thinking. When you own a home, chances are, unless you chose to, you're not going to have somebody living above you, unless it's one of your kids, and you can always get rid of them. I don't know if you knew that, but you could. I'm not saying you should, but you could. All right. So it's really about lifestyle. But here's the thing that I really want you to understand. How many, once again, is going to be your first home? Your first home? Can I give you a tip, a free one? You probably aren't going to get your dream home. You're probably not going to get your dream home the first time out. We need to be realistic. We need to understand that this is a process. Because I love it when people come to me in this first time buyer. What do you want? I want 4 bedrooms, 3 bath, a huge yard, and I want a pool. You know, I understand wanting things. We all want things. You know that there was a time I wanted to be 6'2". I'm 5'8" on a good day. Okay, so what we have to do sometimes as real estate professionals is coach people and say, I know you want to live in this town. I know you like to make it, but based on your budget, based on what you can qualify for, you're not going to be able to get started in that area. I want a single family home. Yeah, well, maybe you can't get a single family home, but you can get a townhome, or you can get a condo, and it gets your foot literally in the door. So you have to remain open to other options and the suggestions that your realtor gives you. Does that make sense? Now, one of the things that we suffer from in our country is that very few people ever achieve paying off their mortgage. You know, thanks to my wife's management of money, because I'm terrible at it, you know, with God's blessings, we're way on our way to doing that. But that should be the goal. You know that oftentimes most people just automatically assume that their mortgage should be for 30 years. And you know, many times it needs to be the 30 years because why? That's the only way you can get the numbers to match so that you can buy. But more and more people are opting for a 15-year mortgage, saving you tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest payments, but you get to become a free and clear owner that much sooner. How many of you have heard of the term generational wealth, right? You know, shouldn't we as parents maybe be more responsible, and instead of leaving our kids with debt because we were living the life, maybe we pass on and leave our kids some wealth so that their lives are better than ours? That's just my humble opinion. Real estate affords you that possibility. And at the end of the day, the pride of home ownership, there's nothing like it. You know, there's absolutely nothing like achieving the American dream of home ownership. Now, let's talk to market, okay? And again, those of you on Zoom, if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type it into the chat area. We have Gabi standing by to answer real estate related questions. We have Lynette Fernandez standing by to answer any mortgage related questions. But do you have any questions on what I have covered so far here? in person, virtual, no? All right, this is gonna be easy. State of the market. Are we in a, I'm sorry, forgive me, yes, question. Yes. Well, here's the thing. Did I say I wasn't a tax professional? Okay, so people purchase in LLC names all the time. Now, you got to understand, you won't be able to turn it into a homestead because you're not a private individual, you're a corporation that's buying it, right? If you're buying cash as a piece of cake, you just have to have proof of funds in the LLC's name. If you're getting financing, the LLC will have to qualify for the financing. Does that make sense? Okay, and all the financing related questions, we have Ari and we have Lynette will be able to assist you with that. Okay, the question, oh, thank you. The question that was asked is, can you buy a property with an LLC? And the answer is absolutely, you can buy a property with an LLC. There's going to be some advantages and disadvantages. Most people that buy with an LLC buy an investment property in an LLC name, because if you buy your primary residence in an LLC, it will not qualify for homestead exemption. All right, good. Next. I'm sorry, where are we in a buyer's or are we in a seller's market? Okay, all right. That was just so lame. We're gonna start all over again. Let me see. I heard one gentleman speak up over here. So now, how many of you believe that we are in a seller's market? Let me see the hands. Okay. How many of you believe that we're in a buyer's market? Let me see the hands. How many of you did not understand the question? How many of you raised your hands both times just to cover your bases? All right, so listen, we're kind of in a both scenario. So let me explain. So let's say a year ago, 9 months ago, I would have asked that question. The answer would have been all day long, seller's market. All day long, seller's market. Why? Huge demand, very little to no inventory. You know, as a result of COVID and all the free money and people needing bigger houses and more rooms and more space and everything else, real estate just exploded. It absolutely exploded. And we saw a situation like we've never seen before. Really, we went through a market that was just absolutely insane. There was nothing realistic about the market we had for the past 2 years at all. Now we're starting to see it normalize. So this is an awesome, awesome time to be a buyer. More on that later, because the leverage is shifting. 8 months ago, you went in as a buyer, you had zero leverage, zero power. You basically got what they gave you. It's changed. It's changing for the better. So it really all depends on price point as well. Let's face it, in the under 300,000, under 350,000, that's where the biggest pool of buyers are, right? There's more buyers in that pool. So there will be more demand than probably inventory. So sellers in that area are going to have more power. As you start getting higher and higher price points, the pool of buyers shrinks. Less demand, and as that inventory grows, we see the power flipping. Does that make sense for you guys? Okay, all right. So is this a good time to buy? Yes or yes? I'm sorry, yes or no? Do you really believe that though?
I was on the Zoom call here from your topic. That question is the buyer and seller's market. Right now we're in that weird position. It's not either or it's not both. Like you said earlier, 6 months ago, it was definitely a seller's market.
Right.
But right now it's right on that cusp, depending on where you're trying to buy a house, and how much you're looking to spend. It can go either way right now, depending on
Right.
that variable. Right now, there's just a lot of variables.
But here's what I'm thinking, and I don't disagree with you, because at the end of the day, Here's my honest opinion. It's always a good time to buy real estate at the right price and the right terms. Would you agree with that? Because what happens is when people try to time the market, it's like trying to catch a falling knife. Don't do it. Right? And you see this happening in the stock market. I'm going to buy the stock at the very lowest.
Hey,
I'm going to
hello,
sell it
hello.
at the very
Hello.
highest. Those
Hello,
people
sir,
drive
sir.
themselves to drinking all the time.
Excuse me, sir.
Let me tell you about, and if you've done any research in this area,
Excuse me, sir.
a lot
Excuse
of
me.
people, a large percentage of people that bought in the past 2 years are unhappy with their decision. Okay. When you bought in the past year and a half or so, you probably bought at the very top of the market. Would you agree? Yeah. So that puts you in a position where the property really has only one place to go. Which way? Probably down. A lot of people that bought in the past year and a half didn't have a lot of options. There was hardly any inventory. A lot of them felt that they were rushed into their decision because you saw about the madness that was happening. 30 or 40 offers on a property, right? Sellers, no concession whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. It's as is, as was, as will never be. This is what you're buying. This is a great time to be a buyer. You have more selection available to you. We're now seeing sellers recognize that they just can't get whatever they want for property. There is a subdivision around the corner here called Scarborough. About a year ago, one of my agents listed a property and sold it for $60,000 above appraised price. Now you tell me if that homeowner isn't maybe, just maybe thinking, did I make the right decision here? You are in a great position now to go ahead and at least have the ability to do what? Negotiate. You know what sellers are doing that they didn't do a year ago? Reducing their prices. They're offering concessions. They're helping with buyer, the financing buy downs. They're actually paying for home warranties, which you could never get before. They actually realize that they're now in a price war and in a beauty contest at the same time. This is a great time to buy. And you know what? The next question that comes up all the time is, well, what about interest rates? And interest rates, well, let me tell you something. I can't sugarcoat this any way, shape, or form. If you could have bought a year ago, you screwed up in the sense of interest rates. That's the one thing. You would have paid more for the property, but you would have gotten a lower rate. Now, how many of you would love to get a 2%, 3% mortgage right now? Yeah, well, it ain't gonna happen. Ari, am I off base here, or is that gonna happen anytime soon? Yeah. It ain't gonna happen, no. So listen, this is the time to accept it and grieve. Now is the time to shed the tears because it was an irrational market and it's done. Now, we are looking at probably higher rates in the future. We caught a break a couple of months ago, but if you are following the feds and their movements and everything else, you know that the economy is doing everything except slowing down. In fact, the economy is heating up. They can't seem to get inflation under control. Their last raise in rates was 0.25%, and all of us started breathing, thinking, wow, they're gonna chill. It probably will be like this for a while. Now everyone's talking that the next time, we're lucky if it's only a 50 basis point increase. So I think that given everything that's going on right now, no guarantees, this is a great time to lock in a rate. And look, let's say you don't get the best possible rate you can. There's a saying in our business, you marry the house, but you date the rate. At the end, are you getting the house you wanted in the area you want and everything else? And because our business is cyclical and it goes up and down when it comes to rates, there's a pretty good opportunity that it could go down again in the future. And refinancing may be an option for you. Question?
It's great. So when I go back into, because I'm in my 50s, and when I go back in time, the interest rates were usually like 7,
Yes.
8%, and that was considered the norm.
You're absolutely right.
So I was trying to explain to them that we're actually coming back to the norm because of 2 and 3 and maybe 4% was really not the norm. But I don't know what else I can do to try to explain it to them, because sometimes I think they feel like coming across as a sales pitch.
Well, look, at the end of the day, okay, all we can do is point out facts. That is one of the challenges that my agents are having every single day. You know, agents are saying, they're saying that people say, well, I don't want to pay. And it says, okay, but then we have opinion, which we're entitled to, but not our own facts. And if you just quoted facts, look at the historical interest rate for the past 20 years. And it's been in the area of 6, 7, 8%. I was an agent in California in the late 70s, and it got as high as 17, 18%. We were spoiled on what we had available for the past 2 years. And now, no matter how much logic you use, how much common sense, there are some people that can't get out of their own way. And I say, no, I want those interest rates again. I don't think anybody sees that happening. Where are prices headed? Now, if I knew this, if I was smart enough to know where prices were headed, why would I be here on a Saturday morning? I'd be on a mountaintop right now in robes, and people would be climbing up the mountain, laying fruit at my, oh, Tony, tell us what's going on. And I can't stand it when agents act a fool and act like they have some kind of a crystal ball and they can go ahead and say, this is where it's going. So, but here's the concern. I get the concern. People are worried. If I buy now, will the prices go down? Okay. Like if for some reason people are totally okay with buying now and the price is going up for some crazy reason. But Tony, what if I buy now and the prices go down? How long are you planning on living there? Was this a flip? Was this an in and out in 6 months? Or are you planning on spending several years there? Now, let me tell you about a time that a lot of you are not going to remember, but I started using this now with my agents to pass on to their customers. In 2008, the world came to an end as we know it, right? You saw what happened with the prices. And they continued to go down 2009 and 2010. You guys remember that? Let me make this statement, this fact. People were buying houses in 2008. Now think about that, right? Now, let me tell you something, and I'm sure there's a friend in your life, there's a family member in your life, there's a Mr. Real Estate in your life. Oh my God!
It does come up from the top, Jackie. Okay.
Okay, yeah, just stay in that area.
We hate fucking niggers, you dumb.
Childish people.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Just kick them out. Guys, I need you guys to find her and kick her out. No, I'm not doing that.
Have a name.
Okay. All right. So there's folks in your life right now, maybe they have the right intentions, but
We hate fucking niggers, you dumb.
good intentions, right? So at the bottom line is they're saying, don't buy now, wait. Don't buy now, wait. Okay? That's
Four
definitely an
big
option.
guys, and they bust on my eyes. They eat my ass like apple pie. If they keep fucking me like this, I might just die. They pop my booty till I cry. He licked my dick and the cum start dripping. I think about his ass.
Maybe for the second year, they may have had some doubts. But then again, they were in a home that they own, and they were achieving all of the other benefits of home ownership, right? Their payments didn't go up. Their expenses didn't go up. They just maybe didn't have enough on paper as they did before. Now, what happened when 2011 came around and 2012 and 2013, and we saw the market start to rebound? Would you agree with this, that many, if not all of the individuals that bought in 2008, 9, and 10 that still own those homes today are laughing all the way to the bank? Yes or yes? So what are you going to do? Are you there to try to do a flip, or are you there to live several years, raise a family, put down some roots, and at the end, there may be some fluctuations, but if you're there for the long term, traditionally, historically, real estate has been the most solid investment that we can make. That's really all I can say about that. So I say that from the heart because I see a lot of people making bad decisions based on poor information, okay? Any questions on that part of it there, folks? Okay, don't be. Yeah, absolutely. Ask questions in the chat. Now, as far as you ready to buy, how many of you, I'm not putting you on the spot. I just want to know how many of you, if
Four big
lined up, if all the
guys,
stars
and they
lined
bust
up,
on
you're
my
ready to
eyes.
buy right
They
now.
eat my ass like apple.
Okay, all right. Well, then we need some information because there's ready, willing, and then they're able, right? Because
You
most
guys
of us,
can
we
mute
need
all
financing in
microphones.
order to be able to pull off the purchase. So we're going to have to sit down with a mortgage professional, and we're going to have to go ahead and determine, well, what kind of income? That's critical to the equation. Is your credit good enough as of right now? You know, what is your history? So here's the thing. Please, when you sit down with our mortgage professionals, be as transparent as you can be. They're not trying to get into your business, but there's only one way to find out if you can truly qualify. If there's a skeleton in a closet, it'll come out. It will come out. And if you don't, we want to deal with that up front, because you know what happens more often than not? Somebody says, I want to buy, but they may not be able to buy this very moment, but with an action plan, they may be able to buy in 3 months or 6 months or a year. It goes by faster than you can imagine. So this is about finding out where you are right now. And for those of you that can buy right now, great, let's go to work. And for those of you that need a little time, that need a little adjustment, then at least you know the roadmap, right? So that we can go ahead and do all that for you. Now, when my realtor sit down with you, we're going to ask you some very basic questions. We're going to get your DNA. We want to know what your payments, how much you want your payments to be. Is there a particular number of bedrooms that you need? Not necessarily want, but need. Is there an area you want to live? We have people all day long that say, I want to live in Davie, this town right here. Why? The schools are incredible. And they say, yes, I want to live in Davie, but they can afford a house that's maybe $350,000. Well, the median price in Davie on the low end is $461,000. On the high end, it's $580,000. So maybe Davie might be a reach for you right now. Maybe you could afford Davie if you maybe forgot about the single family approach and went with a condo for now. So is that worth the trade-off? Is having a great school system worth the trade-off of having a condo versus a single family? These are the conversations that we're going to have with you to try to get you to the point that when we take you out to see property, these are properties that you actually can afford to buy. You don't want to work with a realtor that's just taking you driving around all over town, just showing you properties. Because at the end, why get excited about a property that you have zero opportunity to qualify for? That does not make sense. So there is some sharing of information that's needed on the front end to get this thing to the point where you go ahead and buy. Now, why work with a realtor? First of all, most real estate agents are not realtors. And we have to go ahead and make the distinction. Florida has the most licensed real estate associates in the country. Do you know that there was a gathering right there of 5 or 6 people, and I were to throw a rock, it would land on somebody with a real estate license? So here's the problem that people face sometimes. Chances are you that are looking to buy have a friend or family member or both that has a real estate license, right? I think I should buy with my friend. Okay, I get it. I once had friends too. Okay. Excuse me? Not anymore, no. You know what I teach my agents to say when somebody says, well, I have a friend that has a real estate license? I said, well, ask them a very simple question. Well, actually, your first response is, who doesn't? Right? And then you say, well, let me ask you something. Do they do this for a living? Are they successful, or are they just merely licensed? Because there's a difference. Are they a realtor? Do they are a member of the board of realtors? Do they follow a code of ethics? Do they know the market? Do they know the inventory? And this is the thing that I got to get across to you folks right now. This is probably the single largest investment you're ever going to make. Do you want to trust it to someone that treats this like a hobby, or someone that works it like a business? If something were to go wrong, you probably would not be at all afraid to be upset with your realtor. But what if your realtor is your cousin, your sister, your brother, and you're sitting across the table from them on Thanksgiving? That's going to make it really uncomfortable. So at the end, if your best friend, if your is an amazing realtor, that's an incredible, easy selection. In most cases, that's not. So understand something, our business is really complicated. Every single day, Gabi, especially as the broker, we are seeing consumers so poorly represented by agents out there. And the agent misses deadlines. The agent doesn't understand contracts and everything else. And so many buyer deposits are lost or held and everything because the agent did not know what they were doing. Do not gamble on the agent. Work with someone that knows what they're doing and has the backup. All of our agents have Gabi and I to back them up. Okay? So if you think the process is simple, this is what we go through in every single transaction. Because there are people that just assume that all realtors do is drive Mercedes and cash commission checks. Okay? But there's a lot of landmines on the path from contract to closing. You need someone that knows where those are and helps you maneuver through the process, because it is very complicated. We surround ourselves with the best in the business. We have our preferred lender. We have our preferred title company. And then the temptation may be to work with more than one realtor. I get that. People say, well, doesn't that serve my needs better? How many of you are married? To each other? Okay, that's gotta ask. How long have you been married? Okay. Oh, the newlyweds. That's why they're still sitting so close together. Look, they're touching. Give it 5 years, like, I love that. So no, I'm just kidding. You know, you guys, I want to hug you both. So let me ask you something. You've been married 1.5 years. You guys still date other people? No hesitation on their part. That was a good answer. So let me ask you something. When you decided to marry each other, you got to pick only one? Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So we're kind of like the same way, because we build relationships. What you have with your realtor is a relationship. And just like you don't marry and keep dating, I hope, we want you to kind of develop a exclusive relationship with your realtor so that they know that all their efforts and time and resources are not being wasted on someone that's not willing to be faithful, right? Yes.
About the lender, what if you want to use another lender?
You absolutely can use another lender. It is illegal for any real estate agent to say, you must use this lender. Now, that said, I think it's very, very smart to get a second opinion for a couple of reasons. Number one, the most important critical thing for you should be closing on that house. And probably 7 to 8 out of 10 times when a house doesn't close, it's because of the lender. It absolutely makes a difference who your lender is. We get deals from lenders that we've never heard from. Imagine getting an approval letter from a lender called ABC Mortgage Inc. and they spell Inc. I-N-K. Just kidding. But you can understand that will cause you concern, right? So what happens is this, and I'm gonna have some fun with you. What's your name? Suzette. So what happens is, if you were to come to me and you bring me your lender, right? And I look at the approval letter, chances are I'll do this. Go ahead, do that. Everybody do that. Ready, go, do this. I would say, Suzette, have you ever used them before? And your answer will probably be no. That's what I figured, because I do this for a living and I've never even heard of them. So here's what I'm thinking, Suzette. This is probably the single largest investment you're going to make, right? Yeah. Do you want to gamble? And at the end of the day, doesn't it make sense just to get a second opinion? Because here's what happens when you get a second opinion. Either it completely blows away this first one, and you have much better rate in terms, saving you tens of thousands of dollars, or they can't touch how good a rate you're getting, and you're going to feel even better about that decision. So can you think of any reason why not get a second opinion? No. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
One of the things I'm really concerned with the client is, so I'm an agent here for Xtreme.
Yeah.
It's reputable and they have everything in-house. But with today's day and age, the cybersecurity and everything that's going on, I'm really scared that my client will give their social security number to people that they don't know, and I'd rather be in-house. That's my thing.
Sure.
That's my,
No, absolutely.
that's just, because you're gonna go and get somebody on social media you never heard of. Yeah. You're gonna call them, you're gonna give your social security, your address, your driver's license, you're gonna give them everything. You don't even know who that person
Oh, no, that's a
is.
great point. That's a great point. No, I love it. I love it. You're going to travel with me in all these classes. Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Martinez, I have a
Yeah.
question.
I know who she is,
Absolutely.
and I don't.
Yes, me too, Mr. Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever you have a chance.
Benchmark is our in-house lender, and so we want to make sure, and they understand that, you know, accountability is important, but this is a big financial step. And it just breaks our hearts every time people are working with these out of area lenders and these lenders that are in a different time zone. And you get to the closing and you need an answer and they're not there or anything else like that. No, it's just not worth it. Trust the people that do this for a living. Now, we're very excited because during COVID, we introduced our own Heroes program. And this Heroes program was our way of saying thank you to individuals that are on the front lines. All right, whether it be medical personnel, military personnel, teachers, doctors, all this kind of stuff. And what we did is we take money out of our own pocket because we give a 20% rebate from our commission and we credit it back to these buyers so they can use it toward their closing costs and prepays. They get special pricing on our title services. They even get some special incentives through Benchmark. If you're in one of these categories, you got to talk to the Xtreme agent that invited you here, because we want to extend this to you. Now, we're going to ask you to make a solid exclusive commitment to that agent in exchange for these, but you're going to love it. And Ari is going to talk about the Hometown Heroes program, which is, I'm sorry? Well, you still only get one rebate, my brother. But that's a good one, though. But now there's this program called Hometown Heroes, which has, how many different professions are on there? Over 100. So we just made a decision today to keep ours simple. We're going to actually mirror those same ones with our program. So now if you qualify Hometown Heroes, you actually can get double benefit. You get the benefit from the Xtreme side and the benefit from the financing inside. Okay. So we think that that's a pretty cool deal. Any questions on what we've covered so far? Yes.
Yes, I have a question. Can you hear me? I'm online. My question to you is, what about
Locked
if
out
you
from
have
what
school?
sense? The program?
So I have one, she and her husband, just moved to Florida from, Puerto Rico,
Mm-hmm.
and they are looking to buy within a year. They have been working consistently at the same job for the past year and a half. So they're trying to figure out what is necessary for them to do so that they can buy, but they do not want
Right.
to rent. They actually own their own in Puerto Rico, so to come here and
Mhm.
rent is frustrating for them.
Sure.
Their question was, do they buy land? Do they build from the ground up? Or do they just buy a single family home? And which one is more convenient?
Well, that's a great question. It really comes down to, are they buying cash or are they financing?
Okay.
You know, because at the end, each one comes with its own set of unique circumstances, right? If you buy land, the good news about land is God ain't making more of it. So most people will start with land, but they make poor decisions on land because there's other considerations. Are there's other development that's happening in the area? Has all the electrical been done? Have all the sewers, everything been done? As opposed to just a parcel in the middle of nowhere, okay? Then if you're gonna build, can you get construction financing, right? And all the other issues. So a lot of people go right to the end user and new home. In fact, our agents can help you with new construction. You know, the only problem with a lot of the new construction down here is there's not a lot of it. Yeah, and the ones that are usually very, very expensive. But this is where sitting down with the realtor and saying, what is your budget and what is your time frame? And arriving to that decision. But yes, now is a great time to buy new construction because they're doing all kinds of incentives now because their business has gone down significantly. So if that's something in the cards, we encourage you to talk to the realtor and saying, let's look at an area and see what new construction. More and more people are having to move further and further out to find something that's affordable. And that's a trade-off you're going to have to make, but that's just the reality of the life that we live in right now. Carmelo? Yeah, new construction people are running scared right now. They're running very scared right now, given how the demand just went down. Now it's starting to pick back up a little bit because they're paying for this increase through all these incentives that they're doing, okay? Now, the selecting the lender part, we're gonna introduce Ari and Lynette to go ahead and come up here, and they're gonna answer all of the tough questions when it comes to the financing side. My part is done. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry about the side entertainment, but we learn as we go, right? And thank you for helping me there. I know what to do going forward. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being with us on a Saturday. I know that's a big deal. I'm actually going to pass this off to Ari, who's the branch manager here at Benchmark Mortgage, but I want to say hello because I'm actually the in-house lender. And when I say in-house, oh, hi in the Zoom world. I actually work out of the office next door. So I know he'll touch upon it some more, but your Xtreme agents have direct access to me. Nights, weekends, I speak English and Spanish. So whatever you guys need, I'm here as a resource. We're a trusted resource because we worked with them for a long time. So I'm Lynette Fernandez. You can see my family. Everyone's taller than me in my family. So yes, and then I'm gonna pass it off to Ari Tokar, who'll do a much better job of presenting right now because I'm rambling. Okay, thank you guys so much. You stole my pen.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Like Lynette said, my name's Ari Tokar. I'm the manager for Benchmark Mortgage here in South Florida. My brother, who is not here, is my partner. So we've run Benchmark here in South Florida for 3 years. We've worked together for 8 years, and we've worked with the Xtreme family for almost all of that time. So it's always an honor to be here, and it's nice to actually get these classes going again because it's a great group of people, and at the end of the day, we all are interested in helping people purchase homes. Tony did a really good job of kind of talking about the market and what we know and what we don't know. And he's right. None of us have a crystal ball, right? So there's a lot of things that can kind of go in different directions. But generally speaking, owning a home is something that is important to almost every single person, right? So there's a question of, Is it a question of, is it the right time? Maybe. Is it possible? Maybe, right? But like at the end of the day, you're here because you want to purchase a house. We'll never be the type of people, and I know the agents in this office are not the type of people to say, oh, you should do this if you're not comfortable with it, right? There are sometimes though that we have conversations to help you understand what that really means to be comfortable with it, and to compare sometimes the cost of purchasing a home versus the cost of not purchasing a home, okay? There's the concept of opportunity cost. And when you rent, what's your interest rate? 100%, right? You can rent for a year, you can rent for 5 years, you can rent for 10 years, you never get a penny of that back. Probably not your security deposit either. So the point of the matter is that if you are renting, it doesn't mean that's the wrong decision. It also means that you are not building equity, that you are not building wealth, and that you are not taking the step that is the number one indicator for people in this country to build wealth, is home ownership. It is the number one indicator of whether people have wealth, have net worth, is owning a home. So with that said, before I say anything else, I want to say just a couple of things. Guys, feel free to take notes. Write questions down. At the end, we'll have some Q&A, so I'm happy to answer anything, but let's just get them down at the end, or if I ask at some point. For most of you, this is your first time, so you're not expected to know everything, and that's really important. It's why you're here, obviously, to learn, and as a guest of someone that invited you. And it's really, really important to understand who you work with matters in this case, right? In terms of real estate professionals and working with a realtor, it's important that you work with someone that knows what they're doing, that knows the market, that where you are. There's not people out of town, or that just moonlight and does this a day a week or whatever. Like, you want to work with professionals. And at the same time, on the lending side, like I said, you want to work with Tony shared the perspective of what it looks like when you get a pre-approval letter, if it is that, from particular lenders, right? And at the end of the day, who you work with matters. Whether this market is a buyer's market, whether it's a seller's market, what we can say from experience in all of those markets, having a reputable lender that is someone that you and your agent, and important out in the community, because I will tell you that, like, our team, we've closed probably 4,000 loans in the last 10 years, right? So people know us too. And that's super duper important, because one of the things that we do process wise, when you make an offer, is we pick up the phone, and we're calling the listing agent, and we are vouching for you, because whether there's one offer at a time or 50 offers at a time, and we've dealt with markets that have both of those, us picking up the phone and dialing, or us answering the question or whatever, goes a long way towards your offer getting accepted. And sometimes even, and we don't negotiate contracts, but sometimes even helping with an understanding of, like, how to connect the dots and ultimately get a buyer and seller on the same page. Okay. So, Lynette is here in this office. She works next door. She's in this office every day. If you schedule a follow-up with Lynette this week, if you have not spoken with her already, whether you're planning on purchasing next month, definitely schedule next week. If you're planning on purchasing in a year or two, schedule time. It's not, you don't have to use her. You can get second opinions. You can get other perspectives on stuff. But no matter what your plan is, start that conversation now. Because it's going to benefit you at whatever point you're ready, you want to purchase. And like I said, homeownership, it's the number one contribution to personal wealth. So, work with your team. We will work with your team to help make that happen for you, whatever your timeline is. Okay. Cool. So we're going to break it down. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it takes to actually get approved for a mortgage. All right. And there's three main categories of things that we are looking at here. We're looking at your credit. We're looking at your income. We're looking at your assets. Okay. Assets in this case, we're talking about liquid assets. It's money in the bank. I don't care if you own jewelry unless you plan on selling it. I don't care if you have a boat, like that doesn't, you can't use a boat as a down payment, right? We're looking at liquid assets. And I'm going to start with credit. And I want to give everyone just kind of an indication of like what we look for in credit, what's considered, right? So your credit score is kind of like an aggregate of everything that goes on in your world financially. Right. So we use the three credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And from a mortgage standpoint, we look at the middle of those three scores, not the average, but the middle. Okay. They all look at things a little bit differently. And so that has been the standard in the mortgage industry and what we look at. And so, when you look at what goes into your credit score, it's really important to understand, what affects things. Payment history, Payment history is the number one factor, actually, on the next page. I think these slides got mixed up. Maybe. All right, cool. I'll go back to it. Payment history, 35%. I have seen when someone misses a credit card payment and misses a credit card payment, or they have something go to collections and instantly knock 100 points off their score, like 1 week. And it's not like, oh, I paid it and caught up, the score goes back, because time is the only thing that makes up for derogatory items when it comes to your credit. So credit history, or sorry, payment history is huge. 35% of your credit score is based on payment history. How much you owe is 30% of your credit score. So if you have high balances, has an impact on keeping your scores down. You can have perfect payment history, high balances, and still your score might be, your score might be a little bit lower. On the flip side, you could have no balances and bad payment history. It's going to be worse. So pay your stuff on time. Do your best to keep your balances low. From a mortgage perspective, if your balances are less than 30% of what your available balance, your credit limit, that's kind of like your baseline. Over that, you're really going to start getting penalized. And from that standpoint, 30% is kind of like your baseline, 20% better scores, under 10% better scores. You actually want to have a little bit of credit usage, because that shows that you can actually use credit responsibly. So if you're keeping your, if you're like, oh, I don't need credit cards at all, awesome, keep something on there. Use one card, use it one time a month at the gas station or the grocery store, pay it at the end of the month. That's actually going to give you a positive impact, as opposed to having everything totally paid off all the time. All right. Yeah.
On that, would you recommend like reaching out to whatever credit card company you have to see if you can get a higher limit, so that way, like what you're spending looks lower compared to the amount of credit you have?
You could. Yeah. I mean, I've seen that there's, a couple little credit hacks out there, and like that's something that I've seen people increase their credit limit without their usage, and then it has an impact maybe like the following month. So you can do that. Other things that affect your credit score is new credit, basically, new inquiries in the last 12 months is the most impactful, in the last 24 months helps. And I'll talk about that when it comes to actually like shopping for a mortgage. Length of credit history. You might hear sometimes people talk about young credit. And that just means that you don't have a ton of, you might have 2 or 3 or 4 accounts, but you haven't had them for very long. So you don't have the history. The longer you have those accounts, and then the longer that those accounts have great payment history and, the balances that go with them, the stronger the impact. And then the last piece is credit mix. And that's basically just the difference between your installment debt. Installment debt would be like, say, a car payment where you've got a payment that's the same every month versus your revolving debt, your credit card balances and all that sort of stuff. So that's what goes into your credit history. If someone has zero credit history at all, within 6 to 12 months of establishing 1 or 2 accounts, using them responsibly, keeping the balances where they are, I've seen people establish 700 plus credit scores in just a short period of time. On the flip side, if someone has some marks on their credit, and we can talk about that, we've got some great internal resources to help with credit and some referrals when it's beyond our scope. Someone has bad credit. The biggest thing we always say, focus on the negative stuff and focus on the positive. You still got to pretend like you had no credit at all and build new credit with good behavior, I say, right? Pay your balance, pay your bills on time, keep your balances low, and that sort of stuff. You also got to figure out how to focus on the bad stuff. Get it to either go away, go down, whatever. And depending on what it is, that's where we kind of say, do we help in that house, or do we refer you to a professional that might be better suited for it? Carmela, there was a question back there.
The minimum payment over a couple of months hurt your credit at all, or is it okay to make, to ride that for a while?
I mean, it kind of depends. As long as you're making an on-time payment, you're not going to get hit with a late payment. So that's the number one thing to make sure is you make the payment. If all you can make in a particular month is the minimum payment, that's going to be exponentially better than not making a payment at all. With that said, kind of depends on what the balances are. Your minimum payment, but you still have a low balance compared to your credit limit, not a big deal. If it's a minimum payment and you keep on racking up balances and your balances are growing, your scores are going to suffer because your balances are growing and you're not paying it down, keeping it below that threshold. So yeah.
Loans for your credit.
We'll talk about student loans in a second. They can or they cannot, and how they are evaluated from a mortgage perspective is a little bit different. So we'll talk about student loans specifically. Yes.
Question: if you have multiple credit cards, could you be paying them all down to 30%, or could you pay off a bunch off and then still have that one that you're paying down after?
So in my experience, as long as none of those cards are like maxed out over 90%, okay, and especially over 100%, and I've seen that before, that's when you get like penalized on like a single card basis, in my experience. So you can kind of work on paying everything down. Again, there are some credit hacks or getting rid of debt hacks. And sometimes, depending on what your cards are and what your interest rates are on certain cards, sometimes it makes sense to pay one down, get it off, and then move on to the next one. Sometimes it makes sense to pay them all down simultaneously. So I'm not an expert on like the best way to say get rid of your debt. I can tell you from what we see on the mortgage perspective, I don't see much difference if all of your cards were at 70%, let's say, versus one card at 80, one card at 80, one card at 20. If it's all kind of aggregating together the same way, there's not much of a difference in the impact.
How does the FICO score compare to the scores that you get from the other three? Like a fee?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So like I said, we use the 3 credit bureaus, and the question was for those joining at home is how does the FICO score very different from what you might see online? Maybe you see from your bank or directly from one of the credit bureaus or from Credit Karma or something like that, right? And here's the reality. There's a bunch of different models that are used for credit score. So if you have a general credit score, and when you see what your credit card companies or even directly to the bureaus, through the bureaus, they're giving you kind of like a general overall everyday credit score. It's not a real credit score. It's kind of an estimation. Because then when you pull your credit, it's going to be different if you're car shopping versus mortgage shopping versus applying for a credit card. Okay, you're going to have a different credit score for all of those things because they're different scoring models. The mortgage model is going to weight certain things differently than like the car model, right? One is, so one you're applying for a mortgage, one you're applying for installment debt, one you might be applying for a revolving debt, and they're all looked at a little differently. So sometimes those things are sometimes they're accurate-ish. Sometimes those passive monitoring services where it's not an actual credit pull that's giving you the answer, it's just sometimes they can be horribly inaccurate. Where they are typically inaccurate is they don't always factor in if there's negative items like collections or stuff like that. They could be miscategorized how they're reading them like that. And so sometimes people say, oh, I checked my score and it was 760, and then we run their credit and it was 660. That happens. It's usually explainable. It's just not always the conversation that people want to have or what they want to hear. But yeah, the passive monitoring services are less accurate than here. It's also why someone says, oh, you pulled my credit and it dropped 20 points. No, it didn't. You didn't have a credit score before. Like, we pulled your credit and that is what it is on that mortgage scoring model. And that's kind of a very common misconception. But great point. We start with a soft pull when we run people's credit, okay? So when we take an application, the first thing we do is a soft credit inquiry. Soft credit inquiry is really cool because there's zero impact on your credit score. There is no inquiry that's going to report. With that said, we see exactly what it would be if we converted it to a hard pull right away, okay? So that's a tool that we can use, that we offer, that allows us to get a sneak peek at your credit, if you will. Now, we cannot use a soft pull to run your file through an underwriting system. We can't give you a real mortgage approval based on a soft pull, but what we can do is start the conversation and get a feel for stuff. So if you have an expectation that your credit is, let's say, between 720 and 760 or whatever it is, and we run it and for some reason it comes in lower than that, well, we're going to be able to see what is on there and what's causing that. And before we convert that into a hard pull, which you need to actually get a mortgage, you might be able to do something first, right? At the same time, if you are in that category, you're like, I'm ready to start shopping, and we do the soft pull, and you're like, perfect, credit is what it is. Well, at that point, that's an opportunity for us to have that conversation and say, okay, are we ready to do a hard pull so we can get your file through the underwriting system? Your score is not going to change at that point, because when we go directly from soft pull to hard pull right away, the scores are what we're seeing there. And at that point, that's when we can then actually run your file through an underwriting system and actually go through with that process so you can really start shopping for a home, okay? So that is why we start with the soft pull. It gives us flexibility. You're not going to have the negative impact. Sometimes you might not necessarily be ready to start shopping in the next week or month or whatever. You might be 6 or 8 months down the road, but we can still start the process now, right? and get a feel for stuff. Who would rather say, if you wanted to purchase a house in, let's say, 12 months, would you rather know now whether you're on track to do so, or wait 8 or 9 months until you're really ready to go and then run your credit and realize you have a problem? Right? So let's get on it now. We don't have to go through the entire process, but we're going to see if something's wrong and give you plenty of time to address it if there is, right? So, good. When do we convert to a hard pull? When we need to. If you're ready to get out there and start shopping, you need a credit inquiry. If you do not want to run your credit, you are not ready to buy a house. Or not, okay? So we do it when it makes sense to do so. We do it when we discuss doing it and you're ready to do it. From that point in our process, we are then going to, after we do the hard pull, we're going to make sure we have an underwriting approval through the automated underwriting system that we use. And then depending on how motivated and where you are in the process, a lot of times we'll actually go and then underwrite your file. So you can actually go out there making offers on properties with a fully underwritten, fully approved file. What are we waiting on at that point? The appraisal and the title work and your insurance, and we're good to go. You can close in 10 days, 12 days, 15 days, whatever you want when we do it that way. Where's your current score? How do you know that? Right, but you're monitoring on something that is kind of arbitrary. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult to say how much is your score going to drop because it's dropping from something that doesn't really exist on an inquiry.
So you don't have like a particular amount, like 5 or 10 or.
If you're going mortgage pull to mortgage pull, if the last time you ran your credit was on a mortgage credit inquiry, right, and everything looks the same, the next time you run it, score typically doesn't move more than 3 to 5 points. But if you're looking at Credit Karma and Credit Karma says your score is 820, I'm not going to say that our pull is going to be 815 to 817 because Credit Karma numbers made up and the mortgage one's not. That makes sense? Okay.
I have a question about the loans program. Do you have special requests like the people with 18 number?
What for ITIN? Yeah, we have programs for ITIN numbers. Mhm. So that's more specialized. So probably a one-off conversation. But yes, we do have programs for that. So yeah.
Mary, so do you run both of them?
I heard about this already.
Would you run both of our credits and then see what our credit is, which one's better? Like, how does that?
Sure. So that's a great question. So when we're looking at credit, we are looking, first of all, in Florida, it's not a community property state. So the only people who credit that we need to run are those that are going to be on the loan. So if one person works and one person doesn't, there's zero benefit to the other person that does not have any income being on the loan. We probably wouldn't run their credit. Okay. But if you have 2 people on the loan, both contributing income to the file, we would run both credits. From a mortgage standpoint, there are some places where there's a benefit of 2 borrowers versus 1. But from an interest rate standpoint and program eligibility standpoint, 99% of the time, it's the lower of the 2 credit profiles that gets looked at. So if you got one person that's at a 740 and one person at a 720, interest rates are going to be based off of 720. But again, there are some places where still there's a benefit to having 2 borrowers versus 1, 2. That is a place too where if you have 2 borrowers on a file and you could qualify with only 1, we might say, oh, well, hey, this still works if we take the lower credit person off and then maybe you get better interest rates. But, you know, it's just kind of depends. All right. So when I mention resources, the reason when we do the soft pull or a hard pull, we've got resources to run some simulators. So if something is not right about your credit or you don't think it's right, we can tell you what's contributing. We can also tell you what you might be able to do to work on your credit. And then as far as resources beyond that, you know, I can tell you all day long, well, if you didn't have this collection on your credit, your score would be higher. What I can't do is get that collection off there for you, you know, or I can't, if something's misreporting, I could tell you, hey, this says it's a charge off and you told me that it was paid in full. I can tell you that it's affecting you. I can't fix it for you. So at that point, we do have a number of credit repair professionals that we trust. And think about everything we talk about right now. It's all about who do you know, like, and trust. So I don't refer people that I don't trust. I haven't seen the results of their work. And we've got people that we can refer you to as well, if it's beyond the scope of what we can do. You know, I will say big picture, there's nothing that anyone in this room can't do themselves. But do you know how? I don't. Like, I know what I know. You know what I mean? So we have people we can refer you to for professional help if you needed to. Okay, so back up on credit score. We talked about what's on there. There are some loan programs that, like, if you have things in dispute on your credit, affects your eligibility for the program. So if you're challenging something, sometimes you have to like finish that dispute process before you can go forward. And derogatory item, that could be collections, that could be late payments, that could be bankruptcies, foreclosures, short sales, charge-offs. Those are all things that negatively affect your credit. And the biggest thing that gets rid of the negatives, unless you find a way to get them off, is time, right? So like the further away from negative things happening, the less of an impact it has on your credit score. All right, so I want everyone to like look at this screen real quick. So there are two really, really important things you can do to save yourself a whole lot of time and hassle and like calls to us that say, what is going on right now, right? So I'm gonna tell you right now, Benchmark Mortgage or any other lender that you might talk to does not sell your information, okay? We're not selling your information so other lenders call you and offer you ridiculous interest rates that don't really pan out because they're just fishing. But do these two things. Go to optoutprescreen.com and go to donotcall.gov. And those two things together will take you less than 5 minutes and you will save yourself an ungodly amount of annoying phone calls. Here's what's happening right now, okay? We don't sell your stuff. You know who does? Who wants to guess? Who? Google is not selling it. Well, Google probably is, but they're not the cause of this. Here's who's selling your stuff: Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, okay? All day long. So the second that you do a credit inquiry, a hard inquiry, not a soft inquiry, okay? The second you do the hard inquiry, if you are not opted out, and if you are not on the do not call list, your phone will start ringing. Your phone will continue ringing for the next week, and you will get, no joke, 50 calls a day from lenders. Now, Tony made a good point. You should always have a second opinion. You should always shop. You should always understand what your options are. I promise you, none of you need 300 phone calls in the first week when you're trying to get a mortgage. You will go crawl under the rock and you will say, I'm done with this process. And it has nothing to do with us, but you can control that. So I don't care if you're shopping for a mortgage now. I don't care if you like, this needs to be like advice number one. You can do this today and get rid of the annoying phone calls. And the cool thing is if you are in the do not call list, and they take, it takes about a week for them to actually process that sometimes. If you're on it and someone calls you and you say, hey, I'm on the do not call list, like they have to note that and they have to hang up. And if they don't, it's like you can report them and it's like tens of thousands of dollars worth of fines for every single phone call to someone on the do not call list. So save yourself some time, do yourself a favor, do that. Okay. Cool. So we talked about credit. Before I go on to income, is there any other credit questions? All right. I did say at the beginning, save the questions for the end, right? Cool. I'm just making sure. All right, cool. So we're going to talk about income. So the second thing that we look at is income. Okay. So here's what's considered when we're talking about income. Employment history. Are you employed? Are you self-employed? What we need to look at is different depending on those things. If you are employed, are you a salaried employee? Are you an hourly employee? If you are a salaried employee, well, that's pretty easy. If you're an hourly employee, are your hours consistent? Do you get the same number of hours every week, or do they vary? How we look at things changes depending on the answer to that. Do you receive any sort of special pay? Do you get commission? Do you get overtime? Do you get bonuses? If so, we have to look at those and not only take an acceptable amount of time for history on those things. 2 years is the standard. There's some places where you can do less than that, but we also have to show that they are expected to continue. So, for instance, commission, if you have a history of earning commission and you earned this much 2 years ago and this much last year, and so far year to date you're on track, well, cool. That's an easy thing to like kind of show and track, right? Commission, overtime, that's the same way. Bonuses are inherently the most challenging type of income for us to like prove because they're bonuses. It's extra. But again, with history and the right supporting documentation, we can use bonus income. Okay. We look at length of time on the job. Now you need a 2-year work history. Okay. There are ways around that. Has anyone ever, like if you went to college and didn't work during college or work part-time or whatever, but you got your degree and then you got a job right away afterwards, we can use the time in college and earning your degree as part of your work history. Okay. We can even use graduating high school, if you have some sort of like vocational training in high school, and then you go and get a full-time job right away afterwards as part of your work history. So you don't have to have 2 years history on the job. You got to have something that makes up for it if you don't. Okay. Work history and stability. There are some loan programs that make us take an extra deep dive if you've had a lot of job movement. You know, you've had 2, 3, 4 jobs over the last year or two, right? Who wants to guess as to why? Like, we have to show our, you know, from an underwriting standpoint, we've got to show you have continuity of income. Like, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you're making the right decision, that you can afford to pay your mortgage. You're going to have the stability to do so, because someone is still lending you a couple of $100,000 with very little into it. You might be going in, and we'll talk about loan programs, but you might be putting no down payment. Or you might be putting 3% down or 5% down or whatever, right? So if someone's giving you a bunch of money, I want to make sure you're going to pay the bill. Make sense? So that's what we're looking for income wise. And then assets. So assets, like I said, I don't care if you own a boat or own a car, those things don't contribute. We're looking at liquid funds. We're seeing if you have available funds for your closing, for your down payment and your closing costs. We're, you know, if you're getting a gift from someone, we're looking to make sure it's from an acceptable source if needed. If you have not heard this, I will share it now. Like, cash is bad in mortgages. Okay. So if your gift is cash and someone says, hey, here's all this money, like, we got to have a conversation about how you make that cash actually usable for your purchase. Okay. Reserves, some loan programs or some borrowers, depending on what their credit profile, need reserves. All reserves are is money left in the bank afterwards, after closing. So if you, let's just say your monthly mortgage payment is $3,000 and the program recalls for 1 month reserves, it means that after closing, after all the money that you need for down payment and closing costs and whatever, you got to have $3,000 left in the bank afterwards. You can't spend every penny. Okay. And then large deposits and recurring payments must be explored. So what that means is we look at your bank statements. Okay. And if you have any large deposits, there's a threshold for the different type of loan, but if it's over a certain amount, we just have to say, hey, what is this? And listen, if you have a big deposit because you got a bonus at work or you got a commission payment, great. It's all we can tell, right? But if there's a large deposit and it's not easily identifiable, we have to source it. Okay. So that's where I put $10,000 in the bank and it was cash. That's where that doesn't work very well. Okay. And recurring payments. 99% of the things that are recurring payments on your bank statements show up on your credit. Hey, what's this payment for $421 every month? Well, it says it's going to, you know, auto, whatever, CarMax or whatever, you know, and it's a car payment and it matches what's on your credit. But if you have recurring payments that aren't on your credit, they get asked about. I will say I'll share a funny story. So like recurring payments, I had this one borrower one time and their bank statement was like literally like 35 pages long. And the recurring payment was 99 cents. And there was 99 cents, like literally 25 pages worth of 99 cents. And they were like addicted to this online game. And they kept on just buying more lives and buying more lives and buying more lives. And I had to get an explanation letter. They're like, why does it matter? I'm like, because you spent like $700, 99 cents at a time on, you know, getting more likes and Candy Crush or whatever. And, you know, luckily they still qualified, but that's, explanations are required when you see things that don't necessarily make sense. So we talked about credit, we talked about income, we talked about assets. I'll take a question. It's been a while.
Okay. So personally, I'm in a SUSU or a friends and family savings.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone here has ever been a part of that. And so twice a year, I would get a large sum of money. And is that something that you were referring to as a gift?
Oh, so SUSUs are tough because they are, no, I know what they are. I've dealt with them before. Okay. And they are an acceptable form of, it is acceptable. The challenge comes in the documentation. So what happens is it's like, okay, cool. You had a $10,000 deposit, but can whoever's running it show you all the money that went in and all that's coming out, and are there records to back up the fact that you just got a $10,000 check? Okay. It's pretty rare that the answer to that is yes. I'm just being honest. Like, so it's acceptable. It's very challenging to document. So what typically happens with that type of situation is it becomes a gift from a family member or something like that, or the money's in the bank. If you're getting that money and you're like trying to close tomorrow, like I said, we got to make sure we got a lot of documentation to show that like you are entitled to that money, which is easier said than done. It's been done.
And how much consider a loan deposit with us?
Aside for the size of a deposit. So it actually depends on the loan program. Conventional loans are,
No, I asked you how much you consider this certain money, like, give.
So you start asking, where the money, where it comes from, how much is where you actually decide the investigation about how they got it?
right, yeah, so
How much?
it depends on the loan program. On a conventional loan, it is, if it's greater than 1% of the loan amount, it has to be explored. On an FHA loan, if it is greater than 0.5, no, sorry, on a conventional loan, if it's greater than 50% of your monthly income, it is explored. On an FHA loan, it is if it's greater than 1% of the loan amount. So it differs by loan program on where we have to research. Okay. So question is, we've got your application. You sat down with Lynette. We did an application. We reviewed your credit. We reviewed your income. We reviewed your assets. Now what? So at this point, this is when we kind of come together and we do our pre-purchase consultation and we help you understand what's next, what programs you're going to qualify for, which I'll talk about in a minute. Understand what your options are, and most important thing is that you are confident in what happens next. You don't want to do an application, submit your documents, and then be like, okay, like I don't know what's happening, right? So we always, from a process standpoint, we get your app, we review your documents, we schedule a consultation with you. We can go over everything. You can answer and ask every question that you have, and that when you're coming out of that meeting, you've got a price range to work within, and your agent, your realtor, can set up a search that's going to work for what you're comfortable with. There's also sometimes two numbers, right? There's the what you could qualify for number, which is what we can lend you as a lender based on our evaluation of your documents. And then there's also sometimes the what you can afford number. And that's not always the same number. So I might say to you, hey, you can qualify for a maximum monthly payment of $3,500 per month. And you might say, I'm not comfortable spending more than $2,500 per month. So if we set up a search for you and the payment on all those properties that you're going to see is $3,500 a month, you're going to cause yourself a lot of frustration. You're going to cause your agent a lot of frustration. At the end of the day, you're not going to buy that property because you're not comfortable spending more than $2,500 a month. So in that pre-purchase consultation is the understanding for you of what are you going to get for $2,500 a month? How can we structure it so you can make the most of that number, right? But then at the end of the day, your search has to match up. And what happens sometimes is you start your search there and then you see the properties and you realize hey, maybe that's not what I want and I need to expand my search a little bit. And that's when you bridge that gap between what you can afford and what you can qualify. But we don't want you spending more than you're comfortable with. At the end of the day, that's not our place to say you should spend more. It is our place to tell you the facts, what you can qualify for and what a particular house or a particular community or a particular style of home will cost you, and then help you understand how to make that next decision. Okay. So at this point, we're going to schedule our pre-purchase consultation, and you're going to get out there and start shopping and hopefully find a place really good. So I'm going to transition into just, going over some common loan programs. Lynette, how are we on time?
Technically over.
Oh,
Technical difficulty, so you're going.
keep talking. All right. I don't think I have too much more here. So typically you're going to see four main loan programs, right? You're going to see conventional loans. So conventional loans are, those are the most common, probably 80% of loans are conventional loans. And you're going to see FHA. FHA historically has been very popular for first-time home buyers. You're going to see VA loans. VA loans, in order to be eligible, you must be either an active duty military member or a veteran, or there's a couple of other categories that kind of fall into there. And then those are the three main types of loans. You're also going to see, and we're not going to spend very much time at all, but jumbo loans. Those are over a certain price point. You're going to see what's called non-QM loans. Non-QM or qualified mortgage. I like to refer to those as kind of goofy loans, right? They're the ones that don't fit into the normal box for one reason or another. You're going to see home equity lines, but you need to own a house already to pull money out of it. And you're going to see reverse mortgages, which are products for clients that are over 62 years of age that might want to not have a monthly mortgage payment, but still tap into the equity in the house. Typically, the refinances, you actually can use them for purchases too, for those agents that, have clients that are looking over 62, but we're not going to focus on those today. We're going to focus on the most, relevant for common first-time home buyers, right? So conventional, minimal down payment on a conventional loan is typically 3% for a first-time home buyer. There's not a guarantee that you can get 3% down. We still have to get approval through the underwriting system, but a first-time home buyer in a conventional mortgage can do 3% down. If you are not a first-time buyer, which means you haven't owned a home in the last 3 years, it would be 5%. Minimum credit score on a conventional loan is 620. PMI, that's private mortgage insurance, that is required on any loan over 80% loan to value, meaning anyone that's putting less than 20% down has to have what's called private mortgage insurance, okay? It's different than the MIP, which is the mortgage insurance on an FHA loan, which I'll talk about, and I'll explain the difference when I get to FHA. We can do fixed rate mortgages. You can do adjustable rate mortgages. And the loan limit right now on a single unit, single family or single unit property is $726,200. So any loan amount over that number would be what is considered a jumbo loan. Okay. FHA. So like I said, FHA is kind of a very common, first-time homebuyer program. It has been for years, especially before there were a lot of great options on conventional loans with lower down payment. Some of our parents or even our grandparents at this time said, oh, you got to put 20% down to buy a house. And at some point that was true. When the private mortgage insurance market came around, it was what gave the options on conventional loans to be able to do less than 20% down, right? So FHA, 3.5% down payment is required. There are some places that, if there's a natural disaster out on the west coast of Florida, for instance, with a hurricane, where if if you were displaced, either you owned a home or you rented and you were totally displaced, you can do 100% financing. There are renovation loan options, which we can kind of talk about a little later on the Q&A. Minimum credit score on FHA is 580. Now, technically, that's not true. You can do below 580 with 10% down. Not every lender allows for that. And not everyone using an FHA mortgage has 10% down, but technically you can go below 580 with the minimal down payment. The mortgage insurance, now this is cool. The mortgage insurance was just this week was reduced. It has been for a pretty long time, 0.85% monthly, which on a $400,000 mortgage is like $292 per month. It was just dropped to 0.55% monthly. So same $400,000 mortgage is now $196 a month. So it's like $96 a month in savings. So that's nice. It's either going to save you some money or it's going to help you qualify for a little bit more because you got a little more wiggle room in your file. And the limit on FHA mortgages national. So this nationally is nationally is 472,000, but in the Tri-County area, because our housing prices and everything are higher, it's 557,750. Okay. VA, any veterans? Got one. Thank you for your service, sir. VA is absolutely the best loan program that is out there, in my opinion. The options, you can do 100% financing if you have your full entitlement, so you don't have to put any down payment. And there's no loan limit on that. If you have your full entitlement, you can buy a $2 million home with 100% down, or not 100% down, 0% down. You can buy any house you want with 100% down as long as you got the money in the bank. Minimum credit score, same thing on VA is 580. There are places where we can go lower. There's no mortgage insurance on a VA loan, which is fantastic. And a lot of people don't know this, but if you're, you can actually have multiple VA loans at the same time. So I'm going to talk about hometown heroes quickly. So the list of professions, big picture: law enforcement, medical, fire, EMT, education, and anyone that would be eligible for a VA loan, either a veteran or active duty military, is eligible for Hometown Heroes. So Hometown Heroes is basically sponsored by the state of Florida. I've done down payment assistance programs for a really long time. This is by far my favorite one that I have ever worked with, because two reasons. One, it's a good benefit. It's 5% of the loan amount up to $25,000. So someone that is taking, say, a $400,000 mortgage, they're going to get $20,000 to use towards their down payment and closing costs. The other thing that's cool about that is that that's a 0% interest loan. So that means that $20,000, you have to repay it. It's always repayable, but you're not paying anything on it. You're not paying monthly. You're not paying accrued interest. So if you sell that home in 10 years and you have to repay it, you're repaying $20,000. You were paying interest on that money. be a whole lot more than that, right? So it's a great benefit. It's a great benefit. You're paying 0% interest. The terms, the parameters on the program are pretty reasonable, 640 credit score. And on top of that, the program has reduced fees compared to a lot of other down payment assistance program. So like a lot of times, some other programs where you might get, say $20,000, like you're not netting $20,000. You're netting $20,000 minus a whole bunch of fees. In this case, like you're getting almost every penny of the 20 grand, which is good because you can actually use it. So we've done a ton of those, probably about 20 of them since the program was launched in June of last year. And if you are in any of those professions, and we have a detailed list of over 100 like kind of sub professions there that we can go over with it. But if you are in any of those professions, you know anyone that is, please, it's an awesome program. Okay. And then there are other down payment assistance programs too. So they all kind of have pros and cons. Again, the reason I like Hometown Heroes so much is because it's a great benefit. The fees are low. So like you're actually getting the benefit of the funds. A lot of other down payment assistance programs, once the fees associated with them start to come out, you don't really get the full benefit of the program. And it's like, hey, I got $10,000, but you're only netting 6 or 7. And it's like, and it's usually not enough. They all come with the trade. We'll talk about the eligibility for these programs as we go through your approval. Just because you can qualify doesn't necessarily mean you want to or that you should. And I always say that there's no such thing as free money. So like they all come with the trade-off. Even the one that you pay 0% interest on, like the interest rates on some programs are higher than market interest rates that you would get elsewhere. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, but down payment assistance, we always offer it. We always make sure we've got good programs for people that need it. And if you want it, you've got a choice. Does that make sense? I will take a quick trip through the mortgage process because we have, I think we've talked about most of it. We get your application, we review your documents. We're going to do our pre-approval issued during our pre-purchase consultation. And then you're shopping. And then once you get under contract, sometimes we've got your file fully underwritten already. Ideally, that's it. And you can close as quickly as we can get the appraisal and everything back. But we get the contract, you lock your rate. Interest rates change every day. They're like the stock market. So just because right now your interest rate might be one number doesn't mean it can't be higher, doesn't mean it can't be lower. We keep in touch on that because as those things change, your search parameters could change a little bit too, right? But once we get your loan locked, we get your file underwritten or back into underwriting if we've already gotten it underwritten, and we get there and we close. And then you have your house. Typical closing, our average closing time is probably 23, 24 days. Under 30 days is doable no matter what loan program we're doing. And again, if you have in competitive situations when there are multiple offers on a property, there are many different ways that you can stand out. One of the things that we can do is help you make an offer with a fully underwritten file, meaning you're done. And we can say, hey, you want to close in 10 days, 12 days, 15 days, whatever it is. So you can close quickly if that's a benefit to the seller. And you've given them assurances that once the appraisal comes back and you get the title work and that's clean and you get insurance, you're good to go, which is huge as opposed to coming in and then just starting the process, right? So before you start, hook up with Lynette, schedule some time with her. And then Lynette can take an application from you when you're face-to-face. You can take it over the phone. You can do the application online. We're going to review your documents. I'm going to reiterate what Tony said. Like your first house isn't going to be your last house. It's not going to be your dream house. You just have to be realistic. You have to have realistic expectations in our market, in what you can, what you're looking for, what you can qualify for, and what you want. No one wants to overextend and be totally house poor. And so you got to look at buying a house. Most people that buy a house own 3 to 4 homes over their lifetime, right? Probably not going to find every single thing that you want the first time, right? But you got to find the thing that works for you, that starts to make your money work for you, that starts to provide what you need for you and for your family, and the environment that makes sense. And like I said, start to really build wealth and have something that you can call your own. And we are our team locally here. Lynette's in this office. I'm the branch manager. My brother Danny, we're right up the street. We talk about doing the pre-underwriting and the closing guarantee. We will make sure that your file closes. Otherwise, we will back that up. We really do. We try to make this process as worry-free, as stress-free as we can, and we're also cooler than most other lenders that you met. So I don't even know if Lynette saw that I changed this on the, okay, good. So we are cooler than other people, and we work as a team. Like I said, we've worked with this office, with Xtreme Realty for probably 7 years now, right? And we've worked with a number of agents in this office for just as long. And at the end of the day, guys, listen, we're good at what we do, we care, we're accessible, and we're gonna fight for you know, for you to help you figure out how to qualify for what you want, and we're gonna help you get under contract and get this thing closed as quickly as possible too, so that you can be in your house and have keys and have fun. So there's Lynette's info. I'm always here as a resource as well. And I thank you for your time. I know we are running long, so I'm happy to take questions, but I don't know, Lynette or Tony, if you want to wrap up, if people do want to go, that's fine too.
Just give it up for Ari, everyone.
So this is just the beginning. What we encourage you to do, those online, is to reach out to the realtor that invited you on the call. If no one in particular invited you, please call our office, 954-530-0211. That's 954-530-0211. And we'll go ahead and connect you with a knowledgeable real estate professional. And then, folks, if you don't have to run off and you want to stay here and go into a deep dive on questions and answers, and maybe even go as far as beginning your application process, you don't have to rush off. We're going to be here for you to answer those questions. But how many of you know more about the process now than you did about 90 minutes ago? All right. So we're very, very glad you're here. You know what we forgot to mention?
I think they get an next, well.
Yeah, they get.
but The Zoom world.
Well, the Zoom world, you're not here in person, so you don't get it. But what we did say, if you came here in person, you would get an extra bonus, right? You want to go ahead and mention what that is?
Don't let the boss do that.
What's the bonus? Oh, got it. So yeah, to every.
It's like a wife and a husband situation.
Just,
where there's no fucking
just
bot.
tell me what I'm supposed to say.
Yeah.
So we are, for everyone that's here live and in person, you know, we are offering a $500 closing cost credit towards your purchase. So that can cover the cost of an appraisal in most cases, go towards something else or whatever if you want. Sometimes we get an appraisal waiver, you don't need one. So either way, $500 credit towards closing costs.
Yeah, and that's if you go with benchmarks.
Oh,
Yeah, okay, let's just go ahead and make that clear, because I was like, I'm gonna go with ABC Mortgage Inc. INK. Can I go ahead and get that?
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much. So stick around, get some snacks and everything else, get your questions answered. Bye, everyone. Take care.